Hey everybody, my name is Ronald Long with the Youth Ministry Insider, and today we're going to talk about how to organize, lead, plan the whole bit a youth retreat for your youth group. Let's check it out. So there are a ton of benefits from leading, hosting, organizing a youth retreat for you and your youth group. There's a lot of fun in order to go to like a big box conference where everything's planned out for you and all you really have to do is show up with you and your students and hope you don't lose anybody like during the mass of people, or to go to like the summer camp and just let all of the counselors do the work and you just sit back and relax and minister to your kids when they come up and talk to you. I loved hosting a retreat because it let me be personal with my students. It let me kind of have a chance to organize what I felt like my students needed in that season. Plus, it gave me a chance to be really creative and have lots of fun ideas that I could do with my students. And at the end of the day, it was not my students meeting a whole bunch of other kids from other youth groups. That's really fun and it's exciting. But it gave my students a chance to really connect with each other, and that was really, really beneficial. And we did a lot of both. We went to conferences, we did summer camps, but when we had our own youth retreat, I always felt like it went really, really well, and it was beneficial for me and my students. So I want to walk you through how you can put one together. And the first step, you won't be surprised, is to plan it out. You want to figure out what the purpose is of your youth retreat. Don't just go. Sit down and figure out what your group needs. Do they need to have some really concentrated time of going through the Bible? Do they need to really kind of get to know one another? Do they need to learn how to pray? When you figure these things out, it gives you a purpose to why you're going on the youth retreat. And if you need to have the conversation with your senior pastor about why you're going on a youth retreat, you can make the pitch with this. This is the purpose. I want my students to really spend a whole weekend learning how to share the gospel so they can share it with their friends back home. Well, that's really great. And in that same vein, you want to plan out all the things that go into the retreat. The spiritual aspect, the social aspect, the personal aspect of you and your kids. And you get a chance to really see what that is going to look like. So you can say this, we want to study these particular passages, and I want my kids to read these passages, maybe in their own little quiet time. I want to organize these games for team building exercises so that my students can have a chance to get to know one another better. Or I even want to just ask these questions of my students while I'm at the retreat so I can get to know them better. Plan it out and make sure you know not only why you're going to go on the retreat, but like the what of the retreat. Another aspect with planning is budget. Most retreats are gonna cost money. So list out all the costs of the things. Think about all the things that you might need to spend money on. Food, meals, transportations, a retreat center, t-shirts if you're going to have swag or something like that, the supplies that you need for the games, the printing that you're going to need for maybe booklets or Bibles you're going to have, and scholarships for you and your leaders. Everything, get it all written out and budget out all the costs. And then look at your youth budget, if you're lucky enough to have a youth budget, and see how much of it you want to pull from that. You might end up with a giant number like $10,000 for your youth retreat, and then you look at your youth budget and realize it's $1,000, and you figure out that you can't do a youth retreat that costs $10,000. So what do you do with that? Well, if you've got youth ministry money, you can say, we're going to spend $500 of it on the retreat because I believe in it and I want to do it that badly. And then you determine how much to charge students and really how many students you need to come, right? If you've got a $10,000 retreat and 10 students, that retreat's going to cost $1,000 a student. And I'm guessing your parents probably don't have that just in the bank. So decide, all right, I want to charge $100 per student. My students are going to contribute $1,000 to this retreat, and then we're going to get the rest from a place. Should you fundraise? You can fundraise for a youth retreat. In fact, that gives your church a great thing to do, but how do you fundraise for your retreat? That will definitely be the video that we save for later. But just think about this way. Think about the things that you can do to raise money for a retreat that asks the least amount of your time and your students' time and helps elevate the youth ministry. I've seen envelope fundraisers do really well. I've seen just plain asking do really well. If you know the people in your church who have lots of money and love students and student ministry, go ask them if they would help. Maybe that's a thing. Or ask the personnel committee, the budget committee, or your senior pastor if you can have a little bit more to pull off this youth retreat. And then it's date and location time. Figure out when you're going to have the retreat and where you're going to have the retreat. Now this one matters. Look at the calendars. Not just your calendar to make sure it doesn't conflict with anything your family has going on, but also the calendars of the schools. Don't plan a retreat during homecoming weekend. No one's going to come. And don't plan a retreat in the middle of like fall or spring break unless you really know your people and really think they'd prefer time with you over time at the beach. And also look at the church calendar. If there's a lot of stuff going on in, say, October, there's a men's camping trip and a women's social thing, and you're trying to plan a youth group Bible study right in the middle of it, well, that's going to be really tough to make it happen. Look at all the calendars and do your best to try to figure out when the best time to take your retreat might be. Bonus points here if you talk to parents ahead of time, if you haven't done a retreat in the past, and see what time would work best for them. And then determine out the location. Are you going to stay at a retreat center? Are you going to stay at somebody's lake house? How many people do you think are going to come? You can do a quick Google search of just retreat centers near me, and you can see if they are affordable and in your budget. That might be a big part of your budget decision. Which retreat center costs the right amount, and how much would it cost to get your students there? Or does somebody have a lake house they'd be willing to let you use? If you've got a small enough youth group, a house is really all you need to host a retreat at. So that could be a really great way to lower the cost down of your retreat. And then think about the retreat itself. All right, what are you going to plan for this? Think about the schedule, right? You need to know what you're going to do, and you might be a type A youth pastor who needs to schedule every single 5 minutes of the retreat, or a type B who can make it loosey-goosey. Whatever you are, have something just so that you, your students, and leaders know what's going to be happening during the retreat. And don't be afraid of free time. Schedule that in. Let your students interact with one another, play card games, explore outside. If there's a retreat center, just play basketball for a while. Free time is good. Make it happen. And then think about what that worship or small group or personal Bible study and meal times and all those types of things are going to be. Where do they fit in the schedule? Are you going to have some team building exercises? Are you going to have some opportunities for students to just get away and think and pray? Whatever it is, schedule it all together. Write it down so that you know when it's going to be. And make sure you correctly prepare for how long it's going to take to get to the retreat center. You don't want to say you're going to start your first session at 6 p.m. when you're leaving your church at 5 and it takes 2 hours to get to a retreat center. Make some good plans like that. And then think about the themes and the speakers who you might invite. What does your group need right now? Do they need encouragement? Do they need to know how to grow in their faith? Do they need a session on prayer? Understand the theme of the retreat is what your students need or the direction you're trying to get your youth group to head in. Whatever it might be, plan that out. And then determine, are you going to invite a speaker or not? I've enjoyed sometimes to be the retreat speaker at my own retreat. For those of you who really enjoy being a retreat speaker, you could just speak at your own retreat. Have fun engaging with your students. But no, you're probably going to be really tired if you do that. So consider asking the youth pastor at the church down the street to come with you and be a part of your retreat as a speaker, or even get some leaders, some volunteers to share their testimony and have that be a part of the retreat. You can drive your costs down by inviting someone nearby or someone in your church or another pastor on staff to be your retreat speaker. You've got a lot of options here. Just communicate it to them clearly and early what you want them to do. And then think about your activities. What are those activities going to look like while you are on the retreat? Are you going to have to do things that are available there? Like maybe the retreat center has a gym. Fantastic. You can play games on the basketball court. You can play games even when it's cold outside or raining. Is it the retreat center somebody's house? Well, that might limit your activities just a little bit, but it still gives you an opportunity to see what's available around town. And then decide, are you going to do some team building activities? Are you going to do some outdoor adventures? Whatever it is, make sure you plan it, you know what it's going to be, and so that you have everything written down for you, your youth groups, and your retreat leaders. Now it's logistics, all right? The things of your retreat that are going to matter a lot, like travel and sleep. How are you going to get to the retreat center? You could have adults and parents volunteer themselves to carpool everybody to the retreat center. You could rent 15 passenger buses. You could rent a charter bus. Just make sure you know how you're getting to the retreat center and have a backup plan too. I've seen lots of people struggle because of their transportation not working out. Make sure you know what you can do if the charter bus doesn't show up for one reason or another. And then where's everybody sleeping? Do you have enough space for guys in this room and girls in that room, or guys in that cabin and girls in that cabin? Do people need to bring their own sleeping bags or mattresses or pillows, or does the retreat center provide most of that stuff? Whatever it is, make sure you know what the sleeping arrangements are so you can adequately communicate that to parents. And then it's food and meals time, baby. Kids gotta eat. Again, the retreat center might be the ones totally in charge of what that looks like, or maybe you're in charge of what that looks like. And if it is, organize it out. Know what that meal prep is going to be. Maybe you have hot dogs and spaghetti and breakfast cereal. Easy, right? Easy enough to do. Whatever it is, make sure it's all planned out and a part of your budget. And then, importantly as well, safety. Is there an emergency plan? You got a first aid kit that you're bringing along? Do you maybe have a nurse who goes to your church who you could invite on the retreat to have some, let's say, qualified experience just in case something goes down? This could be a huge thing for you. And on that same note, leaders. You can't be the only one on this retreat. You have to bring some leaders, be it parents who love students, their students, and want to come on the retreat, young college or singles who would like to come, or retirees, grandparents who have time off and could come and hang out with you on the retreat center. Just make sure you recruit early and recruit often to have the leaders you need. Typically, let's say 1 to every 5 students you need an adult for. Yeah, that would be a good thing to have. My dog's scratching. And then promotion, registration. People can't come on the retreat unless they know it's happening. So you got to market it. If you don't like that term marketing, that's fine. But you need to let people know the retreat is happening. How are you going to do that? Well, social media is a great way. Plan it out. If the retreat's in October, then you need to have several different social media posts ready to go from the months leading up to it, at least 4 months leading up to it. And then maybe you send out several different emails for the retreat so that your parents know when the retreat is, when the cost is going to, what the cost is going to be, when they need to pay the cost, where the retreat's going to be. All of these things can be put into an email. And don't just send one, send several. That's fine. Make it happen. And then also know that personal asks are a great way to get students to be involved in the retreat. Ask them face to face if they're coming. Pop into their small groups and see if they'd be willing to come on their retreat. And if you've got a system that your church uses for online signups, I would think that would be the best way to go about that. And if not, use like a Google Forms where you just make the sign up happen through Google Forms, where you get everybody's t-shirt sizes and emails and parental permissions, and you put all of the forms that they need to fill out on there. That way everything is in there and you're not trying to hold on to a piece of paper that just says what everything needs to be on your retreat. And collect the info. If your church has some type of waiver that they need to sign, make sure they've got that. If the retreat center has a waiver that they need to sign, make sure they get that too, and put collection dates on everything. Usually a week before the retreat is really great to make sure you've got everybody's stuff up front. And then it's finally retreat time. You've packed the bags, you've communicated to parents what they need and where, and you're going on the retreat. Well, the first thing I want to tell you is stay flexible. Make sure your parents and your students know that you've got a schedule, but sometimes things just happen. And if something comes up, address it quickly. Try to make sure that you get ahead of anything that happens and communicate with parents back home if somebody has to go to the ER or if little Johnny is crying all night because he misses mom. It happens. It's fine. When you come back from the retreat, give some time to follow up. How did it go? Think about how it went and how you can do a better retreat next time. Ask your leaders for feedback. Invite them to lunch and just ask them what they thought of the retreat, how they thought it went, how it was an experience for them. I like to personally send out another Google form to my leaders the day we get back from the retreat and just ask them to fill it out as soon as they can. That way everything's fresh up in their mind and they remember all the things that went right and all the things that went wrong. And then you, youth pastor, spend some time reflecting. Don't just dive into the next thing. Actually think about what it is that you learned on the retreat. What lessons did God teach you while you were there? What lessons did your students learn? And what did they share with you? Write down these stories, because these are going to be huge things for you to schedule in next time you go on a retreat. And plan to keep the momentum. Usually when you get back from a retreat, there's this spiritual high that's going on. Help students understand that that can be something that they maintain. Not because we've taught them and showed them ministry, but maybe we've showed them how to live their faith life. And then we can continue that. Like, plan your next series to be a continuation of the retreat so that you can remind students what they learned and why it was important. And in all of that, know that a retreat is going to be great for you, for your students, could even be great for your church as a whole, especially if you really involve more people than just the students in your student ministry. I'd love to hear any tips that you've got for leading a retreat, planning a retreat, something that you think I might have missed. Would love to know what that is. Do me a favor, leave a comment down below. This is a crazy small channel. I can respond to any comment you send my way. Remember, my name is Ronald Long. This is the Youth Ministry Insider, and I hope you have a phenomenal youth retreat. We'll see you next week.